They called the B-29 the City of Nowhere. It was an accurate name. Based on Tinian, a speck in the Pacific, its target was always somewhere over the curve of the Earth, a place of fire and noise before the long, silent return over black water. Captain James Walsh, pilot, felt less like a warrior and more like a train conductor on a hellish route. The target wasn't an aircraft factory or a dockyard. It was a vast swath of eastern Tokyo, a low city of wood and paper houses, where cottage industries made parts for the war machine. The weapon wasn't precision. It was conflagration, the first major firebombing raid. The mood in the briefing hut was somber. The weather officer droned on about wind shear. The intelligence officer showed maps with no military pins, just a large red circle. The objective, he said, his voice devoid of inflection, is to create a firestorm. Walsh's navigator, Lieutenant Klein, a man who loved chess problems, stared at the map. "It's not a target," he whispered to Walsh. "It's an area." The flight over was tense, quiet. No one joked. The bomb bays were loaded with M69 incendiaries, clusters of jellied gasoline that would splash and burn. The City of Nowhere was now a city of liquid fire. Then the pathfinders went in, dropping their markers. Strings of floating green flares drifted down, ghostly and beautiful, illuminating nothing but themselves. "On the markers, Walsh," came the command from the lead plane. Walsh took a breath. "Bombardier, you have the plane." The transfer of control was a formality. They were flying a predetermined path. Not the sudden, singular flash of high explosive, but a blooming of dozens of tiny, angry orange flowers on the canvas of night. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Walsh's plane began its run. Below, the orange flowers spread, merging into crawling lines of flame, then into rivers, then into a single terrifying sea of orange. God in heaven, the co-pilot breathed, his face painted orange by the glow. Walsh couldn't look away. This was his doing. His hand on the wheel, his plane on the line. He saw the firestorm achieve its hellish purpose. The wind, created by its own infernal heat, began to howl through the streets, a bellows feeding the flames. The neat geometry of the city below was being consumed by a spreading, liquid orange blot. And then he saw them. As the fire reached its voracious peak, thousands of tiny, bright embers began to rise from the inferno. They rose in shimmering, twisting columns, like reverse waterfalls of light. For a heart-stopping moment, Walsh's mind broke from the horror. The embers weren't embers. In his mesmerized state, they became lanterns. Paper lanterns, like the ones he'd seen in a National Geographic story about a Japanese festival. They were beautiful, ethereally, impossibly beautiful, a galaxy of tiny, peaceful lights rising to the stars. He was destroying a city of hundreds of thousands, lives and bodies into a festival lantern display. Mark, bombs gone. The plane lurched upwards. The deed was done. The glow of Tokyo filled the cockpit for another hour as they turned for the ocean. No one spoke. The radio was silent. The usual post-strike chatter was dead. Klein, the navigator, finally broke the silence, his voice hollow. "Report will say the target was successfully saturated." Walsh didn't answer. He just stared ahead. The afterimage of those rising lanterns burned onto his retinas, brighter than any flare. He had flown through flak so thick you could walk on it. He'd seen fighters explode in blossoms of metal. But he had never been terrified of his own mission until that night. Not by the death, but by the awful, seductive beauty his mind had conjured to dress it in. He hadn't just bombed a city. The City of Nowhere flew on into the empty dark. Behind it, the paper lanterns of Tokyo continued to rise on the wind, a silent, glowing salute to the end of the world, mistaken by a guilty captain for a celebration in the sky.